Hello, every folks, and good morning. Welcome to another edition of Know Your Unit 1 Vision, aka Know Your Fried Chicken. And today we're talking about another unique class, this one for Lyndall. Yes, I know it's a terrible Commando name, but he's our Firebird for today. So the Commando is going to be Lyndall's unique, kind of unique Fusilier variant, and as you can tell by the music, which I'm going to turn down because it is rendering me friggin' deaf, he's the Gunblade guy. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So, first of all, they get both of these sort of mid-tier unarmed attacks there in their piles with Blindside and Flicker, both of which are good status moves. Blindside for Fall Strike, Flicker for Stun, which basically tells you, hey, you know, this is a unit that's actually potentially going to be good at both melee and ranged, and even though the Gunblade is unique to them, it's far from the only option available. Now, looking over their stats, it's kind of interesting. We have a preference towards avoidance over all else, dexterity and agility right behind that, along with resistance. Counter to the regular Fusilier, this guy is not afraid of wizards, he actively counters them. So let's go ahead and get into that here. So, alright. First and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at Mr. Lyndall over here, as we do. So, as far as their skills are concerned, they get access to quite a few. So they come with several of them already up at rank 4. Specifically, fusils, katanas, as well as swords are going to be at rank 4 when you end up getting them. Additionally, they have access to Arts of War, which they'll have many of which already learned when you end up getting them. That is a weird way to phrase that, sorry. Anyway, fists, daggers, and swords, if you would like, and or have somebody to go shove those skills into them, as well as spears, which is an interesting one. As I understand, it was kind of a reference to pike and shot warfare, that he can run one-handed spears and pistols. But anyways, let's go ahead and continue on. So typical augments, as you'd expect, lots of racial abilities for everything except for anatomy, another one of those nice little benefits of unique classes. I really hope that that doesn't end up changing, because it has been discussed a few times back and forth as to whether all of the racial availability stuff should change, which, I mean, granted, would firmly invalidate every single one of these guys already, but also, I just kind of like where it's at the moment. It's just kind of cool to have that limitation. Anyway, so parry, deflect, and overpower, as well as maximum ranks of counter hit, maximum ranks of bash, as well as both jump 1 and 2, giving them a lot of mobility that can potentially be built in. Steadfast, which does not necessarily show up on everything, so that's pretty good, even compared to the regular Fusilier, who does not get Steadfast, closer to the Buccaneer in that particular regard. Full Field Alchemy access, as well as max TP 1 and 2, TAC 1 and 2, both reflection abilities, and this is when we start going down the sort of interesting middle ground route. Because from the Rogue, we have Sneak Attack, which is pretty darn good with, well, any of their weapons, frankly. But stuff like the Gunblades are actually able to be quite a decent threat with these. Like, they're kind of around the middle tier, give or take, as far as weapons go. Like, they're very close to the kind of side-graded one-handed swords, more so than actual two-handers. But something like Sneak Attack does give them a pretty decent amount of extra punch. You've got stuff like Course Correction for making the pistols and rifles shoot like a Fusilier would. Apostate for fully countering magic, as well as Gambit, which is unique to them, which is kind of like a pocket version of Ease. In this particular case, it's going to get rid of readied skills as well as a random buff from enemies in the area, and will remove a single debuff from allies. But it can be targeted out, which means that it does give a pretty decent amount of play in terms of when and where you'd like to use this thing. So they can sort of serve as a medic, but they're a bit less directly specialized like the Fusilier would be. So like the Fusilier's first aid there will provide a little heal as well as getting rid of a single debuff. In this case, it'll get rid of a single debuff and get rid of activated abilities, just kind of in an area. It's kind of like a pocket dispel sort of move as an action move, which is very interesting. Opportunist for getting out of jams, Trajectory, which is basically going to be, if you wanted to have the accuracy of course correction, but you're using a Gunblade, use Trajectory instead. You've got the typical suite of wards, and then we get down to Recruit, as well as Fumarole, which I don't know exactly how to pronounce this. I think it's Fumarole. But this is their anti-magic grenade. So this is going to remove all MP from a single unit, as well as inflict Spell Slip and Feeble Mind, which means that oftentimes they're kind of game plan is to run up, hit something with, let's say, a gunblade or something, or a spear or whatever else, and then just chuck this grenade at whatever's nearby. This makes them a very, very effective counter to certain types of casters, as long as they're timed right. So this ability is fairly cheap in both time and cost, but one thing to consider is that it just bottoms out MP. It doesn't actually, like for example, if you're trying to counter something like a healer or something like that, if you time it right before their turn, it fully shuts them down. And interestingly enough, this means that you can combine something like parry and a melee skill to force them to attack you and essentially do your damage on your off turn. Whereas, for example, if you targeted it just a little bit wrong time-wise, then they're still just going to be able to go heal anyway. So potentially this is, depending on your situation, either way better or way worse than the sleep bombs on the ninja, the Terenius bombs. So very interesting skill. Very effective at countering offensive wizards, partially effective at countering healing ones. But yeah, overall a very useful tool. Now let's go ahead and talk about their weapon axis real quick. So first and foremost, let's talk about the gunblade. So this is their sort of bread and butter kind of token weapon, as it were. They're the only class in the entire game/mod that's able to use this, and there's 2 variants of them, which means that they're pretty kind of mediocre across the board as far as their standard performance goes. So these are going to be the Longhorn and Hyperion. From what I understand, this might be from the MMO thing that I haven't played. I don't know, man. Anyway, their stats are relatively similar. Everything about them is relatively similar. They're meant to be a sort of medium type of weapon, but they come with a special ability in that they can be fired. So this is accessible down here under the finishers. It's going to be a 30 TP command to go and shoot something. And now, because this is a finisher, because it's got long range and whatever else, this actually does allow you to train the two-handed weapon skill at range, which is kind of an interesting little tidbit there. It's worth noting that this ability cannot crit, so like regular pistols, they can crit, gunblade shots cannot. However, this also potentially gives them a bit more kind of just overall play in terms of their range. The two-handed sword over here is going to do typically a bit more than something like light spears or whatever else. So again, if you prefer the novelty of something like this, then you'll probably love it. I personally think they're really darn fun. But they can, for example, run spears. They can run a lot of like pistols and stuff like that. So here, let's go ahead and take a quick peek at this as we were. So let's say you wanted to run like claw and pistol. That can work just fine. Arguably a lot better than the priest. Dagger pistol, which I would personally prefer that on something like the Fusilier there. They can make that build run very well. It feels a little low power for what this guy's trying to do here. If you wanted to run regular swords, also, reasonable option for them. They don't get any other two-handed swords, it's only those ones. They get access to light spears. Again, technically speaking, they're locked out of the pike category entirely, but it is at least a reference to pike and shot, so I'll take it. But yeah, light spear and pistol is a little on the heavy side, but hey, if that's what you're looking for, that's what you're looking for, Being able to counter with a spear while also just shooting at long range is just fun. 1 HKs for removing TP, as you do. I would argue not necessarily as useful as they would be on something like the Buccaneer, but again, you do you. And then on the ranged weapon side of things, that's when we get our fusils and such, which they will have full access to. So if you wanted to prefer to just use them as a kind of side grade of a Fusilier, if you wanted to do like pistol and shield and just kind of have them run up and get close, run completely anti-wizard as it were, then that might be a potential option for you too. We'll just get into a random fight here so we can maybe show off a little bit of how they play. As you do here. Additionally, I love that the portrait just kind of... I think part of the reason that Lyndall was chosen for this not only is because of his background, but also just the funny thing that his pose happens to just coincidentally look just like Squall's pose. And additionally, due to the fact that the musket that he's holding looks just weird and chunky, it kind of looks like a sword, so it ends up working out reasonably well. Also, did I ever put items on her? No. Alright, whatever. We'll just use something else on her here. If you're wondering why it's suddenly way slower than last episode, we're recording off of a Vita today. So yeah, it was kind of about that. Did you? No, you didn't. Is there anyone that I actually bothered to put that thing on? Maybe not. Maybe not. Oh well, anyways, so he's just going to go ahead and go on forward. So as far as their kind of overall performance, they're a class that's typically not super heavy, but due to having decent health, due to having a decent amount of resistance, on top of their very kind of offensive loadout, they can oftentimes put themselves in a kind of forward position without too much worry. They're not exactly going to be something like a fairy or a rogue in that particular regard. Due to their relatively high speed and general agility and whatnot, they're usually going to be pretty cozy 1v1ing most things, and additionally, due to potentially higher defenses, they can usually end up sort of avoiding aggro by standing nearby beast units, as you just saw. As far as their gun blades are concerned, they're just a nice little versatile tool. Again, there's not really anything that necessarily renders them crazy or broken or whatever else. They're just solidly just kind of middle of the road. They're all right. Nothing, again, too insanely nuts. It's just kind of cool to be able to just go shoot something with your sword and stuff. So they are able to more safely train two-handers. Not that that's necessarily something that somebody's worrying about all the time, but hey, maybe it's something that you were worried about. Who knows? I don't know what your deal is. You tell me what your deal is. Okay, that being said, though, we haven't talked about their Art of War category very much because it's got a lot of their features. Namely, they have the quote-unquote proper versions of the flashbang, the mustard bomb, and the tear gas bombs. These are going to be up here. So these are all going to still use those items, but, for example, you can do AoE flashbangs, so if you wanted to stun an entire group, if you wanted to poison and silence an entire group, that sort of thing, they're very good at using those, and additionally, they get access to some ninja abilities like Benumb and Bridle here, if you wanted to have some stun on their attacks. Additionally, it's just kind of fun, but if you've played FF8 before, you know how they do that trigger pull to do that explosion on cut? Well, they already know how to do that by default. So again, due to high evasion and stuff like that, they are able to make it work reasonably well. And in this case, we'll just go ahead and delete this wizard entirely, attack this guy from the back, and you can do things like, for example, setting up a sneak attack ahead of time, hit somebody from the back, delete a wizard, and then just kind of do your whole evasion frontliner fighting thing. They're, again, a very effective unit at that particular role. They definitely feel like they earn that unique flavor, which is good considering that at the time you get them, it's going to take a little bit of a second to get them up to scratch unless you're using cheats. I would say somewhere in the ballpark of around 20 or so runs of Tynemouth Hill to get them from 1 all the way up to 26, I believe is what I ended up counting there. So just kind of bear that in mind, that could be a potential consideration for you. Additionally, unlike somebody like a cleric or whatnot, when it comes to their debuff removal, they're good at getting rid of a wide spread of different debuffs that just maybe happened, but due to the fact that it's only going to kind of function off of ease logic, it won't necessarily always get rid of the one that you want. So just know that you might potentially find yourself in a position that it feels like the Gambit move is maybe not necessarily doing what you want it to do, which, again, is sort of fitting for a Commando there. Stuff will go wrong as soon as as soon as there's contact. So hopefully your skills will be able to suffice in that particular case. But yeah, aside from that, they're pretty good to go right out of the box. They have most of their abilities right from the very start. If for some reason they die and you make a generic version or something like that, you can get more of their kind of spell books and such from the Fusel crafting book. And I believe the Commando's class marks are in there as well if you needed to make more for whatever reason. As far as Lindell goes, to my mind, this is a very, very fun kind of just side grade to the standard kind of Fusilier there. And additionally, unlike other Fusiliers, the fact that the Gunblade can't crit, or rather the shoot command of the Gunblade counts as a finisher, so it doesn't technically have the ability to crit. That can have benefits if, for example, you're looking to set up recruitment or something along those lines. So, like, let's say we take a look at this over here. We got our finisher, and let's say there were just certain cases when we wanted to specifically not finish something off or whatever else, that might be the way to do it, or if they just couldn't get close to somebody or whatnot, that'd be a way to handle it. So let's say we go ahead and just go for the, well, arguably should go for Fumarole instead, but, you know, we can always put up a feint here, put up a shoot, and then just immediately way better odds on absolutely everybody here. That being said, though, Fumarole is just a very good move, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that one over there, get rid of their healing for the time being. We'll go ahead and move back here and then take this shot with a Gunblade because it just kind of looks cool. Now, could we just go for a silencing bomb in this particular case too? Yes, we absolutely could. Maybe we should. We'll just go ahead and shoot right there. And it looks cool. They do the whole flippity-flippy thing, but that should hopefully have gotten them just low enough that we can potentially just go in and recruit with this guy now. We'll see. We'll see. Comparatively speaking, he's not really our best recruiter, but he's decent. So that's kind of the Commando in a nutshell. We've got their AoE bombs, we've got their anti-magic bombs, we've got their cool Gunblade thing, and additionally, they're just a cool dude. You know what? They're just a chill dude with a Gunblade. What do you want? They're very easy to get a hold of. You just recruit Lindell, and he'll come in as this class. Yeah, nothing really too fancy to do with this guy as far as whether you need to, like, whenever you're going and setting him up. Now, as far as other abilities go, like, let's say you wanted to specifically dedicate down that road of just a fully anti-magic kind of unit, going something like the light spears that they can equip along with a ward shield might really be tough against those kinds of things. So, like, even higher end spellcasters and stuff like that would probably struggle a decent bit versus that level of resistance and that ability to counter things. Remember that the anti-magic bomb, as well as the debuffs that it uses, actually, like, they're not counted as sort of higher end debuffs, so they will affect bosses. So, like, this guy can very effectively counter stuff like the wizards in Palace of the Dead and whatnot. So if you needed somebody to make those boss fights a cakewalk for you, there you go. Because MP deletion as well as spell slip and whatnot, those are not avoidable by anything. They cannot be resisted. You can't be immune to them. Any of that. So solid moves there. Additionally, remember that with that sneak attack, you can always set this up ahead of time to get a bit more kind of play out of this, but it does give them some pretty decent hitting potential. I don't think that necessarily performs as well versus, like, using things like a spear, but with claws, daggers, all that kind of stuff, it is something that's already kind of well known to be good in that regard. So just also something to potentially remember. Again, personally, I just, like, when I'm offered the option to get a gun sword and, you know, my options are use that or don't use that, I already know where I'm standing on that particular issue, you know? So always going to end up leaning towards having the cool gun sword thing. Unless it's Bloodborne, then the cool shotgun spear is what I go for. I wonder if I can... Actually, no, I already tried convincing Reichstad shotgun spears. So far, that's a no, but maybe at some point, you know? Anyway, y'all have yourselves a good one. Thank you for stopping by, and yeah, give this guy a little bit of a try sometimes. He's fun. He's fun. He's a cool little custom class. Remember that those area of effect grenades are really potentially oppressive if they're kind of utilized at the right time. Like, we could have silenced two different casters over there, and there's really not too many AoE silence moves. So, actually, come to think of it, are there any other AoE silence moves? Because, like, the standard throwing grenades are guaranteed, just like these ones are. But I don't think there's any guaranteed AoE silences. So there you go. That's potential a very good thingamajiggy over there. All right. Anyway, I gotta get going. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care, and bye.